All right, welcome everybody. This is our continuing series on innovations and school redesign. And today we're going to be talking about organizing adults. I'm Bob Balfance from the Everyone Graduates Center, and happy to be here with you today. We have two fantastic presentations, one from our friends in New Mexico and one from our friends in Georgia. After they share their presentations, we'll have room for Q&A after each presentation and then some discussion at the end. And we'll also have some discussion and resource sharing. Right, if you can continue. As always, we ask you to put your questions, thoughts, ideas, resources in the chat, and we'll call on those questions as they rise, or our presenters will be able to answer them. And then after the sessions, of course, we'll share all the resources they share and we shared out back with everybody. All right. So today we're talking about organizing adults, which is really often an underused lever in redesigning and improving schools. It's how we make the best use of the adults in the building, which in many ways are our greatest asset. And it's how we organize their time, attention, their energy. It's something that often schools have a fair amount of control over. There's always some limits, but the principals have some degree of authority on assignments and roles and responsibilities. And it's also an area we tend to sometimes get stuck in our conventions. This is how the school I went to is here's how it was organized, and that's how schools have always been organized, and isn't that how we should organize our school? And it even gets to the point sometimes where, basically it's organized on the role, not the person. So a principal acts a certain way, a counselor acts a certain way, teachers act certain ways, and it's almost like the people are interchangeable. It's the role that matters. But when you think about it, it's the people that matter. It's the adults. It's their whole range of skills, their passions, their insights that we want to surface that and use all the abilities and assets and energies they bring. And that's really what we can do if we think more boldly and more creatively about how we organize those adults. And we're going to hear two great examples of that today. Sorry, next slide. Right, we can keep going. Going. All right, so first up is our friends from the School of Academics and Career Prep in La Cruces, New Mexico. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Kaz, and have you introduce yourself and your team and take us through what you've learned.
Hello, Dr. Bob. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Kaz Martinez. I'm the director of Sendero School of Academics and Career Preparation. This is our first year with that name. We transitioned from Las Montañas Charter High School, which is what we were when I first met Dr. Bob and the Johns Hopkins team. Actually, back in the late spring or summer of 2018, when we kind of started this process. Right here is Matt Sandoval. He's on the administrative and leadership team. He's been around through most of this process. So again, thank you for the opportunity. I'll go ahead and share my screen. And hello, everybody in the audience. I'm going to kind of present this in a way that showcases the changes we have made through the entire redesign process, starting with the initial workshops that were facilitated by Dr. Bob back in 2018 and has led, almost 8 years later, or almost pretty much 8 years on the dot later to where we're at now. So this presentation I'm going to share is kind of showcasing the new redesign, and then I'll use that as a context to discuss the organizing adults and how we have, organized the adults in our school community to make this happen. Give me a second here to... Okay, everybody. So again, this is a kind of our new rebranding. And just to explain it, we redesigned into a career technical education school where we offer 5 different programs of study. And Sendero actually means pathway in Spanish. So that's we went through an entire process to get a new new name change to reflect the redesign model that we shifted to. And that name change was um, it involved a lot of adults. We had to organize a discovery session with some of the adults in the building to come up with different options, and then eventually voted on with the adults and the students and the rest of the school community on our new name change. Here's actually a picture of some adults, I mean, sorry, some students last year at the National High School Redesign Showcase in DC that Dr. Bob and his team facilitated. You can just see there what the vision, which changed through the redesign process. The mission did not. As you guys know, it's very hard to change your mission, so that definitely still fit. These are some of the core values: non-traditional education, connecting students to the community, life-ready skills, and we really had to make sure that the adults were ready to carry out this new redesign process. Again, it started in 2018, and at that point, we went through the National High School Redesign Network, and we were facilitated by Johns Hopkins University, our state education department, a specific bureau there called the Priority Schools Bureau. And we went through a lot of professional development as a leadership team, and then that filtered down to all of the instructors and the rest of the school staff. And that's how we began with one of those main drivers of organizing adults. So we all agreed as a school community that we would make sure to emphasize relevance in our programming. So it was a place that students had meaning as far as coming to school and they want to be there. To give you a little background, we were before this redesign process a traditional at-risk school that serves a very high at-risk population in our community and around the state as far as their demographics. It's one of the most at-risk locations in New Mexico. But we were running off a traditional model that was just not really working. We had, data that was less than average or less than expected in our attendance, pass rates, graduation rates, you name it. And then those students that we were successful in reaching their graduation goals, we found out through different outreach and different areas that they were not really functioning that well as adults. So that really drove our redesign process to make sure we were preparing students for adulthood and give them a chance and an opportunity to be successful adults through our programming, which focused on again CTE and career-oriented education. So we evolved through these different areas here that you see, and this actually just happened in the last couple of years. Again, it's been a really long process. Of course, our first year of our high school redesign network implementation was cut short by COVID. In New Mexico, I think we're the longest shutdown in schools in the entire nation here in our state. So that impacted us a little bit longer than most. So that kind of set us back as far as our timeline a little bit. And we are finally able to really see what that redesign looks like starting last year and even more so this year. And we're still working on it. So I'm gonna go through these rest of these really, pretty quick. I know we have a limited amount of time here. But this is just some recent pictures of, last year and this year of our students at some policy workshops with state legislators. Here you see another one at a work-based learning and internship experience where students are getting paid to go to a career industry location where they are learning some valuable experience while also earning core content credit on their experience, again, getting paid and hopefully getting an opportunity to further their education in a post-secondary institution in that field and or get an opportunity to work in that career right after graduation. We also transitioned to project-based learning, which again, organizing adults, there was a lot that went into that to ask teachers to go from a traditional teaching model where they're in a classroom by themselves, working on their own curriculum, to really a interdisciplinary team, with several core content areas on one team working on one project for one goal, but making sure those standards are hit in those cross-curricular, um, you know, subjects. And, again, more pictures of just students earning a certificate. This particular one was a forklift certification. So all those kids you see there earned that through our transportation logistics pathway, which we transitioned into the business pathway. And so we're always making different revisions. The redesign process really never stops, as you guys probably know. And again, this is just more, we had a partnership with the Home Builders Association where kids are actually building an entire house. This year they're building a tiny home from start to finish, all by themselves as well. And we're partnering with our post-secondary community college to get that going. So again, just making more community partnerships throughout this whole process. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing here. Again, that's just a quick kind of recap of what the redesign is, where the redesign is taking us. But it really started with making sure the staff, the instructors, and the rest of the staff, number one, believed in that redesign model. Number two, were willing and able to learn a completely different way of teaching and learning. Because when we first started the redesign process, we did change our master schedule. We did change the way students were kind of through their day, but we didn't necessarily change the way they were taught and the way they were learning. And now, beginning last year, we finally kind of evolved to that level with our new model of project-based learning, focusing on CTE, and then part of the day focusing on the core content, whereas both of them are kind of embedded in both those PBL areas. And I'll let Matt kind of talk about the latest or the most recent organizing adults program that we have as far as how we got them prepared and developed for teacher teams, interdisciplinary teams, and project-based learning. And he'll talk a little bit about the capacity that our teachers had, or we thought they had, and maybe some have not had.
Yep. Hi, everybody. Matt Sandoval. So the biggest piece we started with was working with PBL Works. So they've helped us with professional development for teachers to really help change that mindset. It was a huge mindset shift for teachers. We went away from the standard stand in front of the class for 90% of the time, lecture, assess, to the hands-on relevant material. The students see the why in. But we had a lot of teachers and we had some pushback with, well, seat time, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. And really that mindset that was talked about in the beginning of this presentation, that it's so ingrained in the everything the teachers have ever been taught. So to get them out of that mindset, we really had to get them involved with other community partners as well. Because with these pathways that we're offering, the teachers are the educational specialists. They understand the pedagogy. They're working towards incorporating everything into project-based learning, but they didn't necessarily have all of the skills of that trade or pathway. So making those connections and organizing those adults to get together and get on the same page and work together has been a key driver, especially in the construction pathway, because most shop teachers aren't licensed contractors. So getting those skills brought in from an outside person and organizing that time to really maximize our personnel and industry partners has been a pretty big task. Another thing that the teachers had to get used to was collaborative planning time. Since we were a pretty small school, we really only had 1 to 2 people in every department. Now teachers are having to work together and planning together. So that has taken some intentional facilitation as well as intentional planning for who is on what team, who brings strengths, who has weaknesses, and filling those holes with other adults in the building to really try to prevent future problems, future confrontation, and gaps.
And in some cases, we've overestimated the teacher capacity, and they've really shined and really stepped up. And we're like, wow, I didn't know, we had that kind of skill in our building. And in other cases, we underestimated them, and they've really kind of had a little bit of passive resistance, in some cases active resistance, and have really kind of tried to go back to that traditional model that they were comfortable with. So that's where we're at right now. But the leading indicators of our redesign looks very positive. Our term rates, pass rates have increased, our attendance has increased, our enrollment has increased, and we're just waiting to kind of see how that impacts our graduation rate. Eventually, that takes a little bit more time, and we're really just always trying to get the adults in the building, on the same page and working in the same direction.
I think one thing to mention that with this big of a systematic change, you can't wait. We didn't wait to plan everything to perfection. We realized that we really needed to dip our toes in the water and get going. And we've been doing a lot of learning by doing. So you have to be fluid as a leader and fluid with your staff to make those adjustments when something arises that just wasn't planned for. But I think with this kind of change, what's the saying? Um, if you're waiting for perfection, you're never going to get good. So there's a better saying, and I just saw it. I can't remember it.
I like that one.
But if you're constantly waiting for perfection, that's the enemy of good and progress. So just having that flexibility and being able to work with your leadership team and trust your leadership team and trust your staff to do what's best for students and make those adjustments as you go is really how we've seen the majority of our growth.
Thank you. That's quite a remarkable journey you've been on, and a lot of learning that you shared. So I would invite people to ask questions in the chat, or even we're a small enough group, you can raise your hand to come off and just ask it directly. While you're thinking of some, I'll just start. So, you know, you're changing a lot of things together at once, in a powerful way, right? You're both integrating, academics with career, and you're also getting your kids out and about into the community in the real world. Which one of those, I know it ebbs and flows, but which one of those ended up being the bigger challenge to do sort of at scale for everybody?
Honestly, I think it was what we're doing inside the building.
Yeah.
And I'll say that because of one individual that we were able to hire on our staff that was doing the work of getting kids out there in our community for basically for 20 plus years at the large district. We're a small charter for New Mexico, a semi-large city. New Mexico doesn't have a lot of cities, but we're one of the largest in the state. And he was doing this work at the traditional, public school district for many, many years, and was always the leadership there was resistant to some of the things that he wanted to do. Whereas we're like, no, you come over here, we're not going to tell you no. You could do all these things. So we had that one individual that had all these connections and all these relationships and knew what the needs of the industries in our community were, and were able to place those kids. So if weren't for him, that answer would be different. But because of actually that one individual, it was easier to do that piece.
Yep. And like
And I think that's a really important point, that to make it real that every kid has those opportunities, it has to be somebody's job to organize that, right? Because to build schools weren't designed necessarily to have in the traditional staffing, right? You didn't have a person who's out there building those community relationships, and like anything, you have to maintain them, right? It's not like we sign you up once and we know you're good for 5 years. So I think that's a powerful thing. You said, just an important point for others to remember, as they sort of work to create these opportunities that we ought that as part of organizing adults is some roles will emerge as new roles and some roles might go away as like no longer needed roles. And that's how you really get value out of thinking very strategically how to organize your adults.
Yep.
And one other quick question I saw on one slide, I know you didn't have time to go into it, but I think you said you're 4 days a week. Was that right?
Mhm.
Or
Yeah.
is that the instructions 4 days a week and the fifth day the kids are somewhere else? Or just explain how that works.
No, they're just basically 4 day a week. Sometimes we were using that fifth day as what we call enrichment. So we do some different activities that were kind of unrelated to coursework, but the state of New Mexico was pretty upset about 4 day week schools at one point for whatever reason. So they made it very difficult to have any flexibility on that fifth day if you were opting to stay in a 4 day week. So we really got handcuffed by the state. They're like, if you're going to be a 4 day week, you're a 4 day week and that's it. And you have to meet in this box. So we couldn't really go outside of that box and do anything creative like we were doing before. So now literally it's just 4 days a week. It's longer days, but that's the model we operate on.
And what I think is interesting about that, and it'll be interesting to see if like I mean I know there's a lot of factors that are leading to your increased attendance. It's certainly not going to be that. But a lot of high school kids implicitly are telling folks like I'm going to be on the 4 day week plan no matter what.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
maybe it's better to do it in an organized way than an unorganized way, right? So it's an interesting question that sort of goes against the grain a little bit of educators to say that's okay. But again, these are high school kids. They're making that transition to adulthood. It's a longer day. They're combining school and work. You
Hmm.
know, it may well be that they will end up learning more than just saying it's about how much time is like on the clock. So I think that's
Yep. And I wouldn't say like our day's not it's not that much longer. We do go our school year is a little
Yeah.
longer. But I think the one thing we've realized that shorter summer for our population is a benefit. We ended up losing a lot of students when we had longer summers. They were experiencing hardships over the summer. School is a
yeah.
place where that routine they can kind of count on. They know they're going to get fed when they're here, and that stability piece. So having the shorter summer is actually, I think, a benefit for our population.
No, that's very good insight. All right, well, thank you. I'm sure questions will follow, and if they do, you could answer them in the chat, or we'll talk later. Thank you very much, and I'd like to now turn it over to John Green from Gwinnett County Schools to give us a little different take on organizing adults and to show the richness of this of reform lever. John, it's over to you.
Thanks, Bob. I really appreciate the opportunity to, highlight some of the work that's been done in Gwinnett, and also just to thank you for including us in this journey with the Everyone Graduates Center and so forth. And we've really appreciated the learning that we've had, and we're going to go from a couple of different perspectives here, and I won't take long to set that up, but just to give a little bit of introduction for the folks that will follow in some of the presentation is we've got Nathan Ballantyne, who's the principal at North Gwinnett High School. We've got Lindsay Davis, who is the Charge North teacher, and she directs the apprenticeships and internships. And in fact, she organized our juniors networking day to day, which we're all coming out of, which has gone really well. And then we have Tamaya Robb, who's an executive director for CTAE with the district. She'll be able to provide some information from that lens. And we've got a couple of attendees that are on with us too, and they may as well, come in with a question or two or comment in the chat. And that's Karen Bryant from the University of Georgia campus in Gwinnett, and then Lauren Dodson, who is with the Gwinnett Technical College campus in economic development. So Nathan is going to run our slides here as I speak through it, and I'll talk a little bit about just how this works in our part of the universe. Um, we have we have basically a real learner-centered design framework and how we approach things. We go from a developmental perspective in terms of early learning, foundations, exploration, and then ultimately agency. Agency resonated exceptionally well with us, especially as we, viewed the new ABCs of agency, belonging, and connectedness. And we recognized that we we really try to have inclusion as sort of that's sort of a foundational element. And what I'm going to do is we're going to cue this up on the next slide. Partnership Gwinnett did this and in response to our work with the Talent Council and so forth. And so I'm gonna let this video sort of speak for itself. It's about 2 minutes. If you guys can hang in there with us, and then we'll come back right after that.
Are developing the talent, and we are matching the needs of those target industries. It starts in Gwinnett County Public Schools, where students jump into career pathways early. Programs like dual enrollment, continuing education, and technical training put Gwinnetians ahead of the curve.
At Gwinnett County Public Schools, we start early, putting students on career pathways that connect their learning to real jobs. From healthcare to technology, we're preparing graduates who are ready to lead on day one.
Georgia Gwinnett College bridges education and industry. Our programs are designed with employers in mind so that our graduates can enter the workforce with the skills for today and tomorrow's challenges.
At Gwinnett Tech, our vision is simple: teach every individual, serve every business. We make sure students don't just study careers, they practice them right here in our community's fastest growing industries.
At the University of Georgia Gwinnett campus, we equip working professionals and graduate students with skills that elevate their careers and strengthen Gwinnett's business ecosystem.
Together, our school systems lay the foundation, but talent doesn't grow in a vacuum. It grows when business leaders sit with educators to align skills with opportunity. That's where the Partnership Gwinnett Talent Council comes in. At the Talent Council, businesses have a voice. It's where employers say, here's what we need, and educators respond with action. Together, they're closing skills gaps and creating the workforce of tomorrow. The Workforce Forum and Workforce Summit, they bring everyone together, from booming businesses to local startups, and they share solutions, innovate, and accelerate talent development. The result? A workforce that is not just ready, but is built for Gwinnett's business community. This is how we build talent. This is how we build Gwinnett.
All right, I think I got it there. So what you saw is a really brief video of some of the partnerships that are happening between our government, Gwinnett County, our government, basically Gwinnett County Public Schools, the Chamber of Commerce, and now our even some state law that's gone into effect to help support this. So I'm going to bring in ask Tamaya to come in and kind of speak to the district perspective of how CTAE and these pathway kind of opportunities have really changed the landscape. And then eventually I'll get back to how that is impacted here at the local school. Tamaya?
Absolutely. Thank you, Nathan. So to give you some context around Gwinnett County Public Schools, we serve over 183,000 students. We have over 100 languages spoken between our student population, and there's about 24% of our students are multi-language learners. In addition, as it relates to that thinking around the workforce, we start collecting data around, well, what type of services and opportunities do we have in CTAE? Well, the state of Georgia offers 16 different career clusters, but in Gwinnett County Public Schools, we offer 17. And out of those 17, we have over 63 plus career pathways that our students can engage in. And that can show up as some of our specialty schools where there's live work essentially happening, like our Maxwell's and Grayson Techs, but then also our academy schools and our traditional high schools, to which there's particular pathways that are showcased across our entire district. One of our strategic priorities from our current interim superintendent that we do foresee to transition into our new superintendent is around early college and career readiness exposure. And so what that looks like is to prepare us and to support with the concept we have as Portrait of a Graduate. And our Portrait of a Graduate, as you can see on the screen, aligns with what is industry looking for? How do we best support our students? What are those skill-based opportunities for our students to have a workforce readiness lens? So within our CTAE program, we are very much intentional around collaborating with industry, with various agencies in our school system, meaning government, post-secondary opportunities, to ensure that our students are ready to enter that workforce at an entry level and potentially even beyond. We offer various certifications through our EOPAs. We also offer industry certifications of our programs, and that's an opportunity for our teachers in those particular programs to be certified and gain additional funding through our school system. So there's a wide range of opportunities that our school district supports as it relates to having that collaborative conversation, engaging with industry, engaging with government, as well as post-secondary, to ensuring that we're doing this collective work together.
Very good, Tamai. Thanks so much for the district lens and so forth. And let me just cue this up a little bit in terms of how this looks when you look at a school community and one particular high school. There are, obviously partnerships and collective areas going on all over the district as well as the state. This particular video, and we're only going to show you just a small clip of this. And so, but this kind of captures the collaboration that takes place in a birth to career kind of mindset, and also the ripple and impact effects that you have at the federal and state, regional and local levels. And I'm not going to go into all of these different pictures, but we'll let the kind of the video speak for itself. And so I will mute myself here as Nathan gets this one going.
We really need to do our part to support the school system in every way we can. And we, as an award-winning youth leadership program, we started several years ago. They're 10th and 11th graders. They meet local leaders in the community. Not only that, they're in charge of creating and doing different projects. It's team building, the friendships are made between the different schools and get to know new people.
I think those programs, the root of them are really establishing confidence in high schoolers.
It's a victory for that child because they figured out how to be a part of something bigger than them and contributed positively towards it.
And I would say the same is true for the program Teachers as Leaders for Teachers. You really spend a lot of time learning about yourself and becoming confident, and maybe your strengths are completely different than the teacher next door to you, but it really teaches you how to build a successful team, build a successful environment for your students.
It's certainly a sign of effectiveness to see our clubs and activities and sports be so successful.
Raise your hand if you've seen things that look like
When
this.
we think about hiring, sometimes the best folks we can recruit are ones that have been through our system. As I get older, I'm starting to see more and more interest from our alumni who want to come work in our cluster schools. And just most recently, we have a custodian who graduated last year who's come back to work with us and alongside of colleagues that he went to school with.
Why I wanted to come to this cluster is because I had great teachers in high school and in middle school. I could tell they really cared about me and my success. And so I was okay, I want to be that person for other people.
It really shows this idea of growing our own, but most importantly, it happened because that student felt a part of our community while they were here. In some club, activity, classroom, a teacher, some staff member made them feel like they belonged here.
All right, you ready to have some fun?
This 5th grade class is the year I started with my kindergarten. So I've been with them all 6 years. And I think that's what is truly, really special about us. We really grow up together. I feel so confident when I send our kids off to the middle school, and I know when they come back here to walk the halls their senior year, that they've spent this time K through 12 supported and loved and cared for, and they're ready. They're ready to take off.
It's good for them to see, the teachers recognizing their old students and the students loving to come back to where they place that raised them. But Ms. Jones, I want that to be us when I go to high school. I was like, hopefully.
Just let it keep going.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, it goes on, and it's a great, video that the district did a couple years ago, really focused in on effectiveness. And so, the effectiveness is a direct result of a lot of adult involvement. And there's various ways for the adults to get involved, not just the parents and the teachers, but especially the community leaders and folks in various roles. And it's just been fascinating to watch. But I think a lot of that is a result of, we emphasize leadership for all, we emphasize inclusion for all, we emphasize excellence for all, and then finding ways, to make that happen. Let's go to the next slide, Nathan. And then I just put this one in. It's in the materials, but this is just when I started thinking over the last 25 years, basically, who exemplified adult involvement. We have a guy, and we even have a track meet named after him. His name is Gary Billion. He's passed away at this point, but Gary was one of those guys. He came to everything. I didn't know. I didn't know who he was related to, and I found out he wasn't really related to anybody. He just loved supporting the kids, and he would cut out the clippings for all the kids when they would compete, or he would go see their fine arts performance, or if there was anything mentioned about him in terms of high performance, he was congratulating them. And Gary was just one of these tremendously special human beings, and so we really, really have, sort of tried to model ourselves after what Gary contributed and provided to the school community. Let's go to the next one. And then we had another great member 25 years ago, a community member that started our foundation. And we began a schools foundation, and now it's 25 years in existence. And when we started the foundation was based on relationships. We didn't have funding goals. We didn't have, any of those types of things, but we had relationship elements that would support, again, that all students. And I will say one of the things, and these are different times, but one of the things that we did is we funded an advanced placement training summer institute for our teachers from 4th grade all the way up through high school with College Board. And so that made our numbers in ROI. We went from 32 kids in advanced placement to 1,250 in about 3 years. And so those are things that happen as a result of a lot of adults coming together and supporting what's taking place. As we fast forward, and this is something that we're extremely excited about, and this is real time. And we're going to turn this one over to Lindsay Davis, as she'll speak specifically about some of the work. And Nathan, you may cue it up too, and then but I'm sure we can respond to some questions here in just a couple minutes. We don't have but just a little bit more to go, and but I want to turn this over now to Lindsay and the Charge North program, which is, like I said, we just had an event today, Lindsay.
Yes, we did. And so Charge North is a STEM program within our school, a school within a school kind of concept, where our students take extra classes. So where most students are only taking 3, our kids will take 4 or 5, and that includes engineering and AP. And we do that by co-teaching, where I am an AP seminar teacher, but I bring in an AP World teacher. He and I co-teach together. So when we're doing the writing, we kind of combine and we go over the basics only once, but then, hey, here's what you do for AP World. Here's what you do for AP Seminar. But then we build after all of those classes. The goal is to get to their senior year, and their senior year is where the students really do have agency. And the idea is to get them into classes where they can explore career pathways, whether that is AP Research, aquaponics, or internship. And that's what I teach. And what we've noticed is that when we get to internship, especially, we have to prepare the students and I've seen various numbers, but anywhere between 2 or 5% of high school students only take internship or have internships. And a lot of that actually ties back to access, where a lot of HR programs will say no, or they're 18. They have to be 18. And so I've seen different numbers, but I've seen it be that low because of all the barriers that are in their way. And so what we've done is we've backwards designed everything to get the kids ready and to have an easier yes. Where if we're talking about getting adults in, we bring in speaker series for our 9th and 10th graders, giving them ideas of here are some different career pathways that you can explore. We bring in we train them on how to do an interview, how to do a resume. We actually even have our kids get on LinkedIn early so that they can build their LinkedIn profile, and they have not just a resume that, anybody can do a bullet list, but here is actively what I'm doing. And we have heard of other students in our cluster actually putting out themselves on LinkedIn, showing a failure trying to build a robot, but then getting a little bit of exposure and actually meeting someone who ended up writing her a letter of recommendation to MIT and getting her in that way. And that's insane. And so it gets them ready. And then today we build kind of the ultimate thing that we do right before we get them into internship is a junior networking event where we bring in 30 to 35 professionals. The students all dress up. In their engineering class, they have made businesses where they've been doing different challenges to kind of develop all of them. They get business cards. And so the students come in, they network. There's an open networking time where they can exchange business cards. And then we have lunch and they sit at tables with professionals. And there's a couple of competitions. One is where the business professionals at each table decide who they would hire. And then the other is tied to business cards. And the student that gives away the most business cards to an adult ends up getting a prize. And they get to practice both one-on-one and group networking to get them ready to avoid some of those awkward conversations and get them ready to go and try and get an internship. And then but it also gets some exposure to all of the adults and people in the industry. And that is what we just came off of. And so Dr. Green was one of our visitors today. And so thank you so much for that. But that is sort of what we do to build student agency and give them all of that experience.
Well, thanks, Lindsay. I appreciate it. And I just wanted to, before I close with our last slide, kind of relate this back to Kaz. He said a couple things that were pretty similar to us. And although that our pathways or our work may just be slightly different, the adult issue is what has really been the success. And Kaz, it sounded like you guys dealt with that same thing. I love what you said about you overestimated some folks and you underestimated others. And really that is exactly the experience we had. Some people we thought they could handle this kind of, and even how you titled your presentation, reorganizing, put re in the parentheses, you're reorganizing the adults. That's exactly what we did with Charge North, what Lindsay just spoke about, ultimately to prepare these students for a career workforce that we didn't go through and that we didn't have to go through. And then how do we prepare them for those jobs that we don't even know exist yet? And so when you said that, it struck a chord because the people I thought would be extremely successful in this were not. And those that kind of, I would never have put even my kid in their class, period, much less expect them to be able to pull this type of reorganization out, have done phenomenal. And so I really appreciate you saying that. The second thing you said, Kaz, that we exactly had the same experience you did. And that's when you talked about some people wanted it all figured out when you started it. And we had a framework, and that framework has changed multiple times. And it takes the right adult with the right intent, with the right ability to be flexible to figure this stuff out. We have pivoted, and I hate that word ever since COVID, pivoted, but it's the truth. We have changed our course to get to where we are today, where we just welcomed over 100 juniors who are networking with industry professionals, teaching them how to talk to people, do the soft skill development. That was not on our radar when we started this thing. And so we've really had to reorganize our thoughts and really what matters. And with the help of Tamaya and the district office, with the help of John, who's kind of got more of a statewide, more even a national, global perspective, and even the work that Bob's doing, how we kind of linked into that, has been crucial in understanding that what we're doing matters. And Kaz, you probably said the same thing. What you're doing matters, and it changes. And what we're trying to do is scale up this experience. We're a large school, scale this up for as many students as possible through the help of our partners to get these kids a competitive advantage into a career field they're interested in. And so our work's very parallel there. I just wanted to take a second. I kind of went off script, but just wanted to parallel that because I think the work is the same in every school, and that is getting adults who are passionate about student success and being willing to be flexible to get there. And that's kind of what we've learned through all this. So let me cue up the last slide, and then Bob, I'll turn it back over to you and John. So thank you for kind of letting me go there a little bit. And this is a video kind of outlining our CTA office and how they support our students, which we're trying to get to school-wide. So I'll go ahead and start it here.
welcome you to tonight's celebration of Gwinnett County Public Schools Technical and Agricultural Education Student of the Year.
We are proud of each student represented here tonight, and we thought it would be most appropriate to pause and acknowledge one of your stories that was quite simply inspirational to us. And tonight, we'd like to rename this award to recognize the lasting legacy of Mr. Tim Hemans, our former College and Career Development Executive Director. We are very pleased to present the first ever Tim Hemans Inspirational Journey Award to Lorelei Seco from Phoenix High School.
It's such an honor to win this award that is so rarely handed out, and it makes me so happy to see that I can make a true impact. I want to be a civil rights and constitutional lawyer, and everyone who's disenfranchised, I want to be their voice and be able to make that impact for them.
And now for our winners. Our second runner-up is Terry Palmer, Discovery High School.
CTAE has prepared me for my future by equipping me with all of the skills that I need to feel confident in those environments. And I'm just really hoping to gain the leadership and experience I need through ROTC or West Point that I can use to hopefully get accepted into the FBI.
Our first runner-up, Myra Wu, Paul Duke STEM High School.
I want to tell people that CTAE is really about what you put in, being able to take advantage of those opportunities, explore your passions, find what you like. And my CTAE pathway of digital information has helped me really find what all of my passions really align with and hone it into one area.
Finally, our Gwinnett County Public Schools Career, Technical, and Agricultural Education 2025-2026 Student of the Year overall winner, Jasmine Osorio Antonio, McClure Health Science High School.
It's not one straight journey. I thought that I knew what I wanted to do as soon as I got here. I was so set on the medical field. But then I changed to marketing, and then I was like, let me try something else. Let me try computer science. It's okay to change. Learning is a lifelong journey and never just stops. I know it won't stop here. This is just a reflection of not just who I am, but all those people who have supported me.
CTAE is much more than about the coursework, but more than anything, it's about being ready. And I think that's who you are. As you leave GCPS and step into college, the workforce, the military, entrepreneurship, I want to offer you a challenge. Know your strengths and use them boldly. Talent opens doors, but character keeps them open. And wherever your journey takes you, we are incredibly proud of you because of the leadership that you will provide.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right, you got to mute you. Okay, there you go. It's okay to change, as our student of the year said. So thank you so much for listening to all our presenters, and we really appreciate this opportunity to tell our story.
Right. So thank you, John, and the whole Gwinnett team for really sharing with us what it's been as a 25-year journey almost to really create an amazing set of opportunities for your students. And one thing that's, I think, powerful about the story, right, is that you're not only organizing adults, say, within a school to offer new opportunities, but you're really organizing the whole continuum of from K-12 to higher ed to workforce to sort of create those pathways to adult success, if you will. And how do you organize adults across that spectrum to work together, which is no easy thing, right? I'm sure you would say that you give it right now. It seems like, oh wow, this makes total sense. Of course, everyone would want to work together and do all this great stuff for kids. But we know that each of those worlds have their own world, right? And what I'm interested in just sharing a little bit more with folks about is not how you originally forged those relationships, but how do you keep them fresh, right? Because people change, there's turnover in all those roles. So how do you keep those connections? Or what structures have you built so to create that K-12 higher ed workforce sort of team working together, right, for the young adults of Gwinnett? What keeps that going once you've built it?
It's a great question. And Tamai, I think do you want to respond first, or you want me to start?
If you don't mind, I want to jump in. I think a big piece of that is that we are continuously having conversations from a strategic lens. We're not checking boxes in Gwinnett County Public Schools. It may look different depending on the school and the leadership at the school, but what Nathan shared and what Lindsay shared, that's part of their culture. That's embedded in North Gwinnett, and that's quite sustainable. And I can say that for other schools as well. So when you think around our collective ecosystem and how we're communicating with various agencies within that ecosystem, we are constantly growing. It's our continuous improvement plan. And then from a district lens, our strategic priorities, they align with the work around teaching and learning. And those things are the foundation of who we are and what we do to support our students, be it pre-K, elementary, middle, high school, and even post-secondary. There is a collective response to ensure that we are moving in the right direction.
Thanks.
John?
Yeah. I would just add, and this is it's not a play on words. It truly is intentionality in terms of the aspiration for cultures within the community, especially in a place like Gwinnett, which grew one of the fastest growing places in the country for the last 40 years. And where we approach this in terms of not a world-class system, but a system of world-class schools. And so when you see the 17 municipalities and you see the different parts of the county that are unincorporated, but they all center around the clusters. So those clusters of schools, people know when they move in for the most part till they go through rezoning, and they start to buy into that birth to career developmental mindset, almost like a small town, only in an urban setting. And we've stuck true to that for decades. And people really invest. They invest into their place and their relationships, and you start to see that ripple as we evolve. And now in that way, when you've got new people that come, they want to know, how did this happen, and how can we keep it going? And so it is a responsibility, and we don't take it lightly, and we look and study, and we're always trying to, Sonny Perdue said at the summit the other day for higher education, they had all the folks together, and he said we're all working on the FIO degree, figure it out. And so I thought that was pretty appropriate for this conversation.
Yeah, thank you. And so I have one more question now for Nathan and Lindsay, more at the school level. Again, like you guys have been immersed in this for quite a while, so there's things you almost casually toss off that are like that I think others could learn a lot from. So the one thing I think is the scale you're operating on to provide opportunities for students. So you just said we had a networking event for 100 students. There's many schools where they would see a success if they had it for 10 students. So what was the change of psychology or even organization that got everybody on board to say, if we're going to do things for our students, we're going to do it at scale, right? And not just try to get a few more.
Yes, scale, that is kind of our limiting factor, to be honest with you. Yeah. What we're battling in this program we developed is how do you scale it up? John and I talked about this a lot. 100 does sound a lot, but we have 3,100 students in our school.
Okay.
How can we provide that opportunity for the 3,000 that are left? I think for us, it's physical. I mean, to be honest with you, Bob, it's physical space and limitation. Yeah. I don't have the space to do what it takes to do this. When you're talking about combined classes of 50 each, you're talking about and they also work on a modified bell schedule in a way. So we physically don't have the capability to do this type of work, this individual work pathway work that we would like to have. I think that's how you said scalability. That is $1 million question. I mean, how can we scale this up? And it kind of goes along with what you asked a minute ago. Your first question is, how did all this kind of just take off the way that it is, and all these different levers are being pushed and arrows are going the right way? Sometimes you just fall into some good luck. And I think we've experienced some good fortune about the rise of CTE, the rise of the importance of CTE away from this idea that all students should go to college. We've kind of transitioned back to more of a realistic view that we know there's more opportunity for students besides college. It's a great choice, but military, career, employment, full-time college is our all thing. So the rise in CTE, the Economic Development Office in our district in Gwinnett County, which is, Gwinnett County is over 1 million people, realizing they have a serious problem with talented workforce. So this idea of how do you have a workforce development pipeline, the work John's doing, and how do we coordinate with that with the 180,000 kids that enter in our schools every single day? So a lot of that kind of just happened on its own, but then all of a sudden you realize, wait a minute, this is all happening at the same time. And this is exactly what we need to do in order to kind of change and reorganize how the adults think about what schools should look like. So that's kind of really propelled our, like that internship thing today. And I wish we could go 3,000 students have an individualized plan for success. And so kind of a roundabout way to get to your question, Bob, but it's that's our biggest obstacle is how do we scale up?
Right. Thanks. I just want to thank everyone, all our speakers today. And as Nathan kind of alluded, although on one hand, La Cruz, New Mexico and Gwinnett, Georgia might seem like different places in our nation, there's many similarities of both what their students need and how they're organizing their adults to achieve it, which I think should give us hope, right? Which shows us we can do this everywhere, right? It's not something that's exclusive to a certain place or a certain type of school. So I just want to shout out all the hard work that's been done that was demonstrated here today, and just thank you. And with that, Greg, I think we can just go to our closing slides. And again, I invite people to follow up and ask our presenters questions in the chat or to reach out to them afterwards. We have a report that was just out by one of our colleagues. It's a very interesting thing about looking at what happens when school closes and schools are recombined, and really focuses on how do you bring and merge two school cultures together and create something that works for everybody. And I know many communities are now facing this, unfortunately, with changes of enrollment and enrollment declines. And so that's an interesting thing to learn from. We're having a student connectedness project virtual showcase, which we invite you to come to. This is going to be exciting. This is part of our student design work where we've been focusing this year. So these are students who've gotten together to try to figure out how to increase the sense of connectedness in their school. And we would really encourage you to show up and give them a great audience for all the great and powerful ideas they've come from. Because we talked today about organizing adults, but they're going to show us how student voice can also show us a way forward. And as always, we have our Designing Education podcast series which was most recently about strengthening community collaborations, which is really at the heart of both of our presenters' work today. Thank you. And with that, we'd like to say again, as always, onward, be well, and happy spring. Thank you for being with us today.